So Genesis 1, 3 through 23 introduces us to the God of days. We see that over and over again. There was evening, there was morning, a day. And what is a day? What is it talking about here? And usually, we talk about days, we're talking about a 24-hour period of time, right? Well, there's a lot of different theories about what a day means here in Genesis. And I'm going to give you some of those just so you have an idea of what's out there. These are some of them. There's probably a lot more, but these are some of the more popular ones. So the first one I want to introduce you to is the gap theory. The gap theory says that there could be gaps of time in between the creation accounts. So some people put a gap between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 and say that, well, there's a gap of time there. Some put it in between 1:2 and 1:3. And some people put gaps in between each of the days. And so you might have a day that is 24 hours, but then in between the different days, you could have, any length of time. So the gap theory it's called gap theory because there's different gaps of time that are in the creation story. The second one is the day-age theory, which says that each of the days really represents an age. So it's not meant to be thought of as a 24-hour literal day. Each day is an age of time. And so it's kind of like the gap theory, but the days are super long. So it's just kind of a way to express a long period of time. The next one is the revelatory day theory. This one's kind of different, which says that it took 6 days for God to reveal to Moses creation, how he created things. And so the days are like when God came to Moses and God said on the first day, God told him, hey, in the beginning I created the heavens and the earth, and here the earth was without form and void and all that, and then I created light. And then the second day, God comes back to Moses and says, okay, let me tell you about the fact that I created the sky. And so he tells him about the sky and blah, blah, blah. And on the third day, God comes back. And so you kind of see that it's how God revealed things to Moses. That's one theory. Another theory is called the literary day theory. This view is very old, but it's had its origins with those that were trying to harmonize the Apocrypha with the Bible. See, there's a verse in Ecclesiasticus, which is part of the apocryphal writings, that says that God created in an instant. And so you have these early church fathers who believed in Ecclesiasticus, believed that the Apocrypha was acceptable, was scripture. And so they were trying to take that phrase that says that God created instant and then bring that together with Genesis chapter 1. And so you got this literary day theory, which says that the days are merely a literary device. They're a way of delineating spiritual truths. And so it really kind of allegorizes Genesis chapter 1 and tries to say, well, God created everything in an instant, but here he created light. And then you take the light into, like what Paul said, how God is light. And so it's kind of a literary device rather than meant to be a literal day. There's one more view that I want to talk about, and that's the normal Earth day, 24-hour literal period. Throughout the Bible, we find that it treats the creation account as a historical event. It treats the things that happened as a historical, this is what exactly happened. So that kind of gets rid of all the literary kind of stuff and those kind of things. It talks about how, this is 6 days, and you get the whole idea of Sabbath, which we'll talk about later on, which is based upon 6 days and then the seventh day rest, which I think even Jesus thought that was a literal day, which is, if it's good enough for Jesus, it should be good enough for us. But, we got to remember that it's a big deal. It is a big deal to figure out what day is he talking about, because if you start trying to harmonize the days with something outside of the Bible, I think that's an issue. If we start, well, what is a day? I don't know what that means. Everyone knows what a day means. If you say, well, I'm going to go tomorrow, you know what tomorrow is. You know what a day usually is talking about. And and I understand we use day in different ways too, but here it says there was evening and morning, which was the normal Jewish way to think of a day. There was morning and evening, day one. So you have evening, you have morning, you have a number, day one. And so it's hard to argue against a 24-hour literal period of time passing. And, there's a lot of other stuff you can go into, but I encourage you to look at it yourself, take a look at the different theories, but always make sure Scripture is number one. Scripture has the authority. If you're trying to say, well, it looks like Scripture's saying this, but over here science is saying this, well, you got to stick with Scripture first and see how science fits into that. Not the other way around. Don't try to harmonize Scripture with something outside the Bible itself. And if you do that, you'll be safe. So take a look at the different theories of day, what a day is. And it's a fruitful study. It's good to take a look at those things.